Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong.
The pressure cooker continues. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got a topic here. Mark Carney cannot ignore the separation of Alberta from Canada. We have high-level talks from a delegation from Alberta going on in the White House, having discussions at the highest level, talking alignment of the province of Alberta and America. We have Mark Carney with the most tone-deaf thing he could have possibly done here, which I'll show you in a combination of different ways here. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got Separatists posting this polling data. So let's compare this. This is back from the 2021 election, as he's pointing out. The progressives here getting 53% of the votes combined, and today, what do we have? The progressives here getting 45% of the vote. If we look at the conservatives, back in 2021, got 25% of the student vote, and just a few months ago, 36%. So you can see students are waking up because they don't have a chance in Canada. They're getting screwed, as Pierre Poilievre mentioned in a recent interview. Thought this was interesting too, Separatists fact-checking and correcting this account, Polling Canada, who posted this Ontario federal polling, Liberals 44%, Conservatives 39.9%, and he's coming out and said you forgot to include the Main Street poll. That's the one where the Conservatives were leading. That would definitely sway the data there in favor of the Conservatives. Very convenient that this account would do this. Now, I've already done some digging on this account. It comes no surprises when I saw that because Curtis Frick runs that account. And who is this guy? He's the founder and managing director of Cardinal Research, a small Canadian polling firm, and the creator of the X account Polling Canada, as I just showed you there. Frick previously ran as an Ontario NDP candidate in 2018 provincial election, Niagara West, establishing his background on the left side of the political spectrum. And that's what we have here. So Cardinal Research, I snipped this just in case this gets deleted. So it says here, who are we? Our leading team is Curtis Frick, the founder and managing director of Polling Canada. It even says it right on there. So what's the lesson here? Careful where you get your polling data. Moving ahead, we've got Canadians traveling to the US will be photographed upon entry and exit starting Boxing Day. Merry Christmas. And when it comes down to it, when you go through those radar detectors and all that, they're already taking a bunch of photos. I don't know if this is really all that different, but I guess they're just announcing it now. But of course, the left are going to have a big meltdown over this. Jumping back to this Global News interview with Donna Friesen and Mark Carney. I didn't show this in the previous video because this directly ties with what we're talking about here today. So Carney gets the final question here on affordability. It's absolutely awful in Canada, everything.
Okay, my final topic is about affordability. The single biggest issue when I said I'm coming to interview you and I asked people, what matters to you most? And they said the cost of living.
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Yeah.
There are so many people, as you know, millions of Canadians who are struggling to pay the rent, who have difficulty buying groceries because the cost of everything has risen so much. What is your message to them? Do you just need to be patient? Is that what your message is?
Why is she suggesting an answer for him before he answers? It's so dumb. You trying to give him an out? This is ridiculous. Donna Friesen is the worst journalist.
Really not. First is absolutely understand the scale of this issue. And we have acted on it, and we will continue to act on it. And let me be more specific, which is that we had this huge surge in inflation after the pandemic. And then the overall level of inflation is now back to
roughly where you want it to be.
2%, roughly where the bank should be. But the level...
Yeah, it's just the world event. Don't worry, guys. It had nothing to do with the outrageous spending that's going on. First Justin Trudeau, now Mark Carney himself. Has nothing to do with that.
Of prices, that's different. The level of prices is still high. And on top of that, the food, the expenses of people who are less well off in the country are particularly high.
Yeah.
So the price of beef is high because of drought in the U.S. and challenges. Price of coffee has gone up, dramatically. So the price of groceries.
Yeah, so everything has gone up because of some other reason, right, guys? This is a load of garbage. It's because of his spending. $78 billion deficit. Justin Trudeau running billions of dollars in deficit every single year. That's why the price of everything has gone up. As Marty up north points out here, the tax cut for the middle class was approximately $11. There's a Canada Dental plan. No one can use the school lunch program. Carney saying, oh, the inflation is just 2%. We're in that target range, when in reality, as Marty pointing out, 7%. Year over year, it's like 4 or 5% inflation on food. This just compounds every single year. 94,000 full-time jobs replaced by 116,000 part-time jobs. On top of that, we have Mark Carney announcing $2.5 billion for Ukraine, so I briefly touched on it. Here's the press event.
We've provided military assistance, further military assistance. We're announcing today further economic assistance for Ukraine. $2.5 billion worth of economic assistance that helps unlock financing from the IMF from the World Bank, from the Europe.
From where? The World Bank? Come again?
Unlocked financing from the IMF, from the World Bank, from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
Yeah, okay. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know how I feel about the World Bank. We've got Oxfam reporting $41 billion unaccounted for at the World Bank. And as I broke down, $3.488 billion that has gone from Canadian tax dollars to the World Bank from 2015 to 2025. This actually goes until Justin Trudeau stepped down, so it'll be more now. So yeah, when he starts talking about the World Bank, I have a feeling that we'll never see that money again. And that's not going to help rebuild Ukraine or help Ukrainians or any of the stuff he says it's going to do.
To begin this process of rebuilding, we have an important bilateral meeting and then a meeting virtually with our colleagues from the coalition of the willing
Okay, yeah, the coalition of ripping off taxpayers. You know, if this does go to rebuilding Ukraine, you know where this money's going to go? It's going to go to fund companies that Mark Carney's invested in here, which you can see. This is the Ukraine rebuild. This is right off of this website here, BFW Wealth Management, U.S.-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Agreement, a new model for rebuilding and strategic partnership. And you have a list of all these companies down here, right here. And I basically just took them off of there and then checked them one by one to see which ones Mark Carney's invested in. He's invested in 7 of 9. So are we using Canadian tax dollars to essentially fund these companies to rebuild Ukraine? It's like he's using our money to enrich the stocks he's invested in. Is that what's going on here? It should be highly illegal what he's doing here on everything, not just this. I mean, his conflicts of interest. These are just rampant abuses of his power here. He's invested in the Red Chris mine, and yet he announces it as some sort of major project that we're going to funnel our tax dollars into so he can enrich his own shares. What a crock. Same thing happened with Nancy Pelosi for years in America. Here we've got someone in America who created a chart here, a graph that showed Nancy Pelosi versus Warren Buffett versus the S&P 500. Warren Buffett, the most successful trader in the world, and look at Nancy Pelosi just absolutely skunking him. Yeah, this is what you call insider trading. So she recently, I believe, stepped down or retired. I mean, I wonder if people were catching on, but you can see at the end here, 948% return. Buffett with 445%, S&P 500, 438. Nancy Pelosi essentially doing the same thing here, what Mark Carney's trying to do. Mark Carney can try to blame the world event or anything else on inflation. It's all government spending.
Has gone up considerably. So there is this affordability. So what are we doing? First off, we cut taxes for everyone who pays taxes. 22 million Canadians. It was the first thing we did as a government.
As I just showed you there, $11 a month, it doesn't do anything to move the needle. And not only that, there was reports showing that low-income Canadians actually have to pay more. They don't get that $11 per month savings.
And this is material, particularly for those less well-off. Second thing we're doing is we have preserved all of the programs in a tough budget where we had to take tough decisions, a budget where we're saving $60 billion, a budget where we're cutting 10% of the public service, 20% of consultants in the last budget. We preserved, rightly, because these are fundamental, childcare, $10 a day childcare, national school.
That $10 a day program, most parents cannot get their children into that. So we subsidize very select few parents to use that, while most parents wait for years and never get access. It's a dumb program.
Food program, which helps 400,000 of our least well-off children. We've made that permanent.
The National School Food Program exists virtually in every single province and was not needed by the federal government. Trudeau brought it in to stick his name on it so he could pretend he was doing something for Canadians. Carney is just keeping it going and sticking his name on it now. We don't need it. There's already those programs in existence. If they really wanted to add money to it, then they should be funding the existing programs in each province.
Pharmacare, dental care, healthcare, the healthcare transfers to the province, all the things that help on the margin. It's not.
Those programs aren't helping hardly anyone. It's creating more inflation, more government spending, more debt, and it's increasing the cost of everything. This is where the inflation comes from. Mr. Banker knows this, but he's a chronic liar and he won't tell Canadians the truth. But don't worry, we've got one of the best economists in human history, Milton Friedman, here to tell us exactly how inflation works.
But it comes down to the same thing. Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else. Yes, sir.
That's it. And who's doing that right now? It's Mark Carney. First Justin Trudeau for 10 years, Carney just jacking up, increasing the deficit spending, $78 billion a year. He knows how to solve the problem. He doesn't want to solve the problem. Otherwise, he would cut a bunch of spending, services, and he wouldn't be sending $2.5 billion to Ukraine. He's further increasing inflation during Christmas when families are struggling and we have 2 million people going to food banks.
Yet enough. What we have to do as well is we have to look for other opportunities, increase competition, get prices down. And fundamentally, what we have to do is grow the economy. Yes, we have to grow the economy.
And that's the part that's going to take time. And I think that's the thing when people say to me, well, how long is it going to take? Ask them how long it's going to take.
Well, look, we are doing a series of things and we'll continue to look for others that help bridge over that period of time. But at the core is we have to grow this economy. And we have to grow this economy in a way that makes it more independent, more sustainable, that works with provinces and works with Indigenous people. We have to do all of those things. That's why we're in such a hurry. That's why we're doing the major projects. That's why we're launching Build Canada Homes, which will be cheaper homes as they're built for Canadians. That's why we're striking all these trade deals internationally. That's why this job. It's one of the reasons why this job.
He can't even hold his face. He knows he's full of crap, the stuff he's saying. Build Canada Homes isn't going to build more homes, isn't going to make cheaper homes. We're subsidizing a bureaucracy that won't do anything but increase more inflation in our country. We shouldn't be spending a dime on this. We should be getting rid of regulation and enticing companies to come to Canada to build homes. This guy's a charlatan. He's an absolute shill.
Where we started is relentless. It should be relentless. And look, we're making progress. We got to keep on this track. We're in a stronger position than we were 9 months ago at the start of the year.
No, we're not. We've lost so many big companies. How could he even say that? 9 months ago, we didn't have all these tariffs on autos and steel, aluminum, the forestry industry, canola, seafood. How are we better off?
We got to keep going, and we will keep going.
Carney's such a liar. And why did he laugh when he said this?
Internationally. That's why this job, it's one of the reasons why this job, where we started, is relentless.
It's so funny. It's so funny that Canada's crumbling. What he's got here is called Duper's Delight. He's taking pleasure in the downfall of Canada because he's profiting off of it. We got Vesper posting this one here. Food banks are spending 1,366% more than 5 years ago. 2.5 million Canadians are now visiting food banks because the Liberal Party has destroyed our economy. As he's pointing out, as I just said, $2.5 billion going to Ukraine. That's sure going to help.
With this report, the average family of four projected to spend nearly $1,000 more for food in 2026. How alarming is that to you?
It will take some sacrifices.
Well, it's alarming on two fronts. First of all, for the individual clients, for the individual families that can no longer afford the food that they need to feed their families. Obviously, there's great concern there. And then when they make those decisions to have to come to the food bank, that's going to increase our client volume yet again in 2026, and it'll increase our cost to be able to serve those clients. Just at the beginning of the pandemic, we were spending about $1.5 million a year to be able to feed the city of Toronto, just in terms of our food costs. That number now, $22 million per year.
It will take some sacrifices.
Yeah, that clip really sums it up. As he said, $1.5 million up to $22 million. That's the increase.
Mentioned the added volume for clients coming to food banks, of course, in Toronto, but right across the country. How much of an added strain on food banks would this be next year if this is, in fact, the way food prices go for Canadians?
Well, we know there's a direct correlation between food prices and food bank visits. We know that there are 2.8 million Canadians who are in the severely food insecure category. You mentioned already, 10.6 million Canadians are food insecure, but those that are missing meals on a daily basis or weekly basis, those are 2.8 million. And so food banks right across the country have risen to the occasion. They have made sure that there is food.
Swing voters got to be careful who they vote for. As I mentioned in the previous video with the $2.5 billion to Ukraine, we've got Melissa posting this collage here. 4 MPs from Ukraine's ruling party served with notices of suspicion as part of anti-corruption body's probe. Huge corruption scandal threatens Ukraine's government. Ukrainian lawmakers exposed getting cash for votes, anti-corruption agency says. Ukraine anti-corruption agency raids parliament offices. Ukrainian anti-corruption investigators say they're probing vote-buying scheme. Ukraine anti-corruption agents search home of Vladimir Zelensky's top advisor. And we're going to send $2.5 billion more dollars to Ukraine. This is a money laundering scheme. It's going to increase inflation further in Canada, make Canadian lives even more miserable, and these guys are going to be running to the bank with it. It's no wonder we're now seeing this. Jeffrey Rath and a delegation here from the Alberta Independence Movement having meetings at the highest level in Washington with the U.S. State Department, talking about their alignment with Alberta and the Trump administration with America and their plans to separate. Obviously, they still have to get the signatures and go to referendum and vote for it. But I mean, this is serious business here.
We actually met in a skiff of all things, but that was interesting. But the people that we're meeting with go directly from our meetings to the Oval Office. So that's the level that we're meeting at. We're at it for several hours, going through all of the ways in which the United States government could support Alberta independence when the timing was right. They are very enthusiastic about Alberta becoming an independent country. I mean, the one thing that we all fervently believe and have in common is that the government in Ottawa and the landlocking of Alberta's resources is being done by Ottawa at the behest of the communist Chinese. And the Americans, see it within their national interest, both under the Monroe Doctrine that's been around forever and their new national security strategy, to support Alberta independence and freeing the third largest oil field in the world from control by the communist Chinese. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about is that the reason that the Chinese want to keep Alberta oil and gas landlocked is because they don't want Japan and South Korea to have a steady and stable supply of oil and gas coming out of the third largest oil field in the world, right? In terms of why it is that the United States is so supportive of a free and independent Alberta. So we were excited about that. We talked about a West Coast pipeline being one of the things that Alberta would like to see immediately upon independence. And that would be a pipeline going from Alberta through Idaho or Montana, Idaho, and either Washington or Oregon to the West Coast to supply that Asian market. And
so we saw that was that pipeline that would go down out of Alberta and then across America to get to Tidewater versus going through British Columbia and having to deal with David Eby and a group of activist First Nations who don't want prosperity.
Americans are very supportive of that. So we were talking to the U.S. government about support for our pensioners and converting, Alberta pensions at par from Canadian dollars to U.S. dollars, things like that.
Something else to note about that pipeline, it's not as easy as saying like, okay, we'll just go south and send it across Washington. There's a bunch of hippies and leftist wingnuts in Washington as well who are trying to block those pipelines in America. So that's not as simple as he's making it out to be here.
Also talking about doing a feasibility study, which we're going to get working on right away, to establish a $500 billion line of credit for the country of Alberta. So that immediately upon a successful referendum result, Alberta could trigger a $500 billion line of credit so that when we negotiate with Ottawa, we'll be negotiating from a position of strength and not from weakness. So, we want to be able to.
That's a smart move. That is a smart move, but there's many, many steps in between. They're trying to go at this from every angle here and cover the bases.
The sidestep, what we see the inevitable response from Ottawa will be to Alberta becoming an independent country, which is to try to screw with us as much as they can on the fiscal and monetary side. So, I mean, if we're backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. Treasury, collateralized with the Alberta oil field, oil and gas resources, we've got no reason not to be able to succeed in our negotiations with Ottawa and successfully removing Alberta from Canada and becoming an independent country.
Smart move, using oil as collateral, getting that loan from America, and then being able to negotiate from a position of strength. It's almost like Mark Carney should take some notes here in negotiating with Donald Trump. Something interesting about this post too, this was reshared by Ryan Jasperson. This is a guy who News Talk Radio in Alberta. He had Justin Trudeau, and he might have had Mark Carney on as well. He definitely had Trudeau on twice, I think. As it says, host of Real Talk, Ryan Jasperson, he posted this: in a lot of countries, this tomfoolery would get you strung up for treason. That's an interesting comment. Now, what's interesting about this comment is if this was done by a right-wing account, then there would probably be RCMP showing up at their house to talk to them about not saying such things. Is Ryan Jasperson going to get a visit? Probably not. Alberta will be renamed North Texas and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Wanting a better future for your kids is not treason. I mean, the Liberal government is destroying our country. I'm not surprised that you have separatist movement in Quebec is surging in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Surrendering prosperity, energy security, national sovereignty to a corrupt Ottawa establishment is. Alberta independence is about preserving what Canada used to be before it was sold out. Yeah, well said. And this graph here sums it up. I mean, look at this, $13 billion equalization payments going to Quebec, bunch of freeloaders, and then they reduce the cost of their electricity with all of the Canadian tax dollars that get sent over there. So they get to have cheap electricity while the rest of us have to pay out the nose for it. All the other equalization here is not even close. And why is Ontario getting $406 million? They have the largest population. Why would they get a dime? Not to mention they got the ring of fire up there. Go develop the resources. Same thing with Quebec. Go develop your resources. This system needs to be abolished.